Joe. Communication is not complicated, but we complicate communication. I do it all the time. I am famous for overthinking everything. I am famous for taking my sweet time to make a decision and figure something out. In 2020, I had 3 major events happen to me all within about a 2-week period. Major events for me, things that made me feel like I had failed as a wife, as an instructor, and as a teammate. And for me, it was devastating. No one in those scenarios made me feel that way themselves, but I brought all those feels on myself. And I think that we do that a lot in law enforcement. No one's telling us we're doing a bad job. There are a few. But no one's telling us overall we're doing a bad job, but we sometimes bring that on ourselves. When I was a new officer, I worked in Kansas City, and the practice of our department was to call a female officer over to the scene of an arrest if they had an arrest that was a female. So if a male officer arrested a female, call a female officer over to do a search. So the first time this happened, I was really confused because I had just graduated the academy, and I thought, well, that's not what they taught me in the academy. Why would I have to go do someone else's work? Here I have to drive all the way over here and do this. So it just kept happening. I didn't say anything about it because I was a new officer, and I just went with the flow because that's what everyone said that we did. So it really got me one night when I was the only female available in the whole city, and I had to drive 45 minutes to do a search on a female and drive 45 minutes back to my sector. And so I, at that time, pulled my sergeant aside. I said, why are we doing this? And the sergeant said, well, that's how we've always done it, so that's what we do. And I said, that's not how we've always done it because they taught me something different in the academy. And so the sergeant said, well, that's just how we do it, Huth, so keep doing it. So I did. A couple months later, I was transferred to a different station in my city, and I had a new sergeant, and I had a new set of officers, and it kept happening, same things were happening. So one night I made an arrest, and I had a male arrest, and I said, dispatch, send me a male officer for a male search. And the dispatcher got back on the radio and sounded kind of confused and said, repeat? I said, dispatch, I need a male officer to respond to my location for the search of a male arrest. 10-4. So I thought, well, great, this is not gonna go over well. I'm new up here we go. So my new sergeant and my sector mates come over, 2 sector mates, 1 sergeant. My sergeant says, Huth, what's going on here? And I said, sir, I have a male arrest and I need a male officer to do a male search. And he said, why? And I said, because that's how we do it, right? I always get called on female searches. And this sergeant was my instructor in the academy. He taught me how to do searches. He was feared and revered. He was a man of not very many words. I was afraid of him. And he just got this really big smirk on his face, and he said, you're right, same, carry on, and he left. So the good part about that was, not a week later, I think it was a week, an email came out on my department from our deputy chief, right up here, assistant chief, and it said, female officers will no longer be called to the location of a male arrest to do a female search. So that's over. So it was just communication. I didn't have to write a big memo to anyone. I didn't have to complain and gripe and make phone calls. I just did what was right, equal treatment, right? So a while later, I had been working as a police officer for a while, and my dream job came up. There was an opening at the police academy. There was an opening for a physical training and defensive tactics instructor. Well, to my dismay, my husband was already assigned there, and I thought, well, there's no way they're gonna let me work there. I already knew that I was gonna have to wait until he retired for me to even have a chance at that position. But the more I thought about it, I kept thinking, and I thought, well, there's no one else on the department that's more qualified than me. So I don't even know who they would pick. And so I got the courage, and I took the opportunity to call the aide who is making the decision, of the commander who is making the decision for that position. And I said, hey, I just have a question for you. Would you be able to convince your boss to give me an equal opportunity to be considered for this position. And the aide said, well, I didn't even think you'd want to work there since your husband works there. I said, no, I think it'd be a great opportunity for me to boss him around at home and at work. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. And the aide said, well, you are the most qualified person. What you're saying makes sense, and let me talk to my boss and I'll get back with you. So I didn't hear anything, and a couple weeks go by, and the next thing I know, I get a transfer letter to the PTDT section, new assignment. So it went on to be the greatest job I had ever had on the police department, and it all started with one simple phone call. One small communication. I didn't have to write a memo. I didn't have to gripe. I didn't have to complain. All I had to do was make a phone call from a connection that I had made previously and got the ball rolling. So communication for me has been one of the biggest things that I think is so important in our profession. The third thing I will leave you with is fast forward, same section, physical training, defensive tactics. We had officers who were struggling mentally. And so my team and I, we looked at it and we thought, well, defensive tactics is a stressor on our department. It can be a stressor in the academy. And we thought we're gonna add mental well-being into our curriculum. And here's all the reasons why. So we scheduled a meeting with our commander. We decided to give them all the reasons, tell them why we thought it was so important. You know, recruits are stressed out when they're with us. Officers are stressed out when they have to come to in-service training. We want to talk about mindfulness. We want to do yoga. We want to do breathing. We want to give our officers all these tools to help them survive, help them reset for their day, help them be the best they can be for their family, the best they can be for our citizens, the best they can be for their teammates. So the commander was all for it, said go for it. We changed our curriculum, we did it, and it was just a simple conversation that we had with that commander. We didn't have to write a memo, I'll say it again. We didn't have to gripe and complain. All we had to do was have a simple conversation and put that plan into action and let them know how important it was for us to do that. ILEAD has been such an important part of my professional upbringing for many, many years, and I have never been intentional about thanking the people who have helped me along the way, and that has been many years here. And so what I learned over the past year is that even though we talk about communication, we all know how important it is. We have to be intentional, and we have to make sure that we're taking the time to go out, thank people, seek someone out. If we sat in a class and we really liked something, we said, even if we liked 1% of everything that they said, it was that 1% that helped us out, that we know that we're gonna take with us and go on from there. So communication is not complicated.